Welcome to People in Insurance. This podcast explores the mix of diversity, culture and tech innovations in our industry. Join us as we sit down with trailblazers, thought leaders and innovators who are reshaping the landscape of insurance, bringing you stories that redefine the narrative. We are your guide to the evolving landscape of insurance. This is People in Insurance, brought to you by Mackay. Lucy, thank you very much for joining me today on Changing the Conversation. It's a bit of a different conversation we're having today, which I'm really excited about.
Thank you. Yes, it's always nice to visit the capital city, and it's a bit warmer down here than it is in Yorkshire, so yes, I'm very pleased to be here.
Brilliant. So we're talking a lot around community involvement and bringing the next generation of people in and what you do in your brokerage and all great things like that. So I wonder if we could start with you just giving me an overview of who Lucy Hodgson is and what you do.
Oh gosh, who is Lucy Hodgson?
I know, it's a great question, and lots of people listening will know, but for those that don't.
Okay. Well, Lucy Hodgson these days is two different people actually. I have two different names. So I have my work persona, which is Lucy Hodgson, and then I have my married persona, which is Lucy Armitage. So it's
which
quite
one confusing. Do you bring to work? Because you know the whole
Hodgson.
Bring your whole self to work thing.
Lucy Hodgson, definitely.
Brilliant.
Lucy Hodgson. I am 49 years old. I live in Halifax in Yorkshire, and many people listening to this podcast who know me will know that I decided to be an insurance broker when I was 8, because that's what my dad did. And I don't think I really knew what he did at the time, but I knew that I liked going into work with him and seeing what he did. And so, yeah, my career in insurance was founded from a very young age. I didn't go into it straight away, obviously, from being that age, but carried on at school a bit longer. But yes, I started my insurance career when I was 18 years old, properly. And insurance has underpinned really everything that I've done. My job has given me so many opportunities as well to get involved in other things. So I'm one of those people that likes taking part in things, I suppose. Maybe I'm quite nosy really underneath. But I like being part of a community. I am a member of Rotary. I volunteer in all sorts of different ways. I'm a chair of trustees of an Almshouse Association looking after elderly people who need accommodation. Over the years I've done all sorts of things. I'm a member of the Worshipful Company of Insurers. I'm a liveryman and shortly going to be getting involved in their charitable committee. So lots of things going on, but I do like giving back to the community.
Do you ever sleep?
With difficulty at times. No, I do sleep actually really well. My biggest challenge these days is I wake up at the crack of dawn, which is really annoying. So 4:20 and then I'm wide awake. So
I would love to be that person. I keep thinking, just get up 10 minutes earlier, Sarah, and your whole morning will be different. Yeah. But I haven't been able to do it so far. So just going back to your dad. So Mackay is a business that started with my dad and me. And I remember being, I think, maybe 12 and going into my dad's office at the time, which was Willis in Leeds, during the summer holidays, and I used to do the filing, like, where there was proper filing systems.
Yes.
And I used to go and do the filing, and I remember loving it because I felt important in an office environment, etc. What was your perception at 8?
Similar really. I think I felt I had a purpose, even if it was, when I was 8, I used to just go and sit with the receptionist, to be honest. I'm sure she didn't want me under her feet all the time. But one day she gave me a task to transpose her telephone notebook into a brand new notebook, and she thought I had nice handwriting. So I did that, and she kept it for years.
That sticks with you, doesn't it? It really sticks with you. I'm trying to continue that by occasionally bringing my children. So I took my eldest to Lloyd's a few months ago. I've brought my middle daughter in to interview people in podcasts, and I hope that it sticks in their memory the way it's obviously stuck in ours.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really nice when you can have that connection with your father or your mother, or that really lovely family connection. As I got older, I was promoted to doing the filing, and there was nothing better than that sense of achievement. So people used to come downstairs into where I sat, it was actually the personal lines office, and they'd bring their stacks of filing from that day. and it would all be piled up, and the next morning I'd like go downstairs with it all. That sense of achievement I had when I'd done all the filing was amazing. Sometimes it took me all morning, but I'd achieved something.
Do you know what's funny? My first job straight out of A-levels, I did a gap year, so I worked for 6 months and I went travelling for 6 months. My first job was in motor claims at Legal & General, and I don't often mention that. That was just because my dad was insurance, so why don't I just look for insurance companies around and see what I can, what I get. And I got offered a job at Legal & General and a job at Churchill when I was 18. So
Yes.
It's funny how it does stick with you.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I did a similar thing and decided I didn't want to go to university, and so I wanted to look for a job, and I didn't want to work for my father straight away. And so I wrote to Giggle Star, Royal, GRE, and they all offered me an interview, which was lovely, but GRE were prepared to interview me kind of then and there and offered me a job, I think it was probably February, March time, to start in August, so I chose GRE.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What do you think, apart from the filing systems, which I hear and I know have moved on leaps and bounds, what do you think's changed from those days to these days in terms of people bringing their children to work or giving children a taster in the insurance industry as work experience and things like that?
I don't think we see it as much, to be honest, which is a shame. I don't know why that's changed. Perhaps I think people's jobs have changed somehow. I think people, are we busier? I'm not sure. I think people were probably busier then, but I think finding that time to bring your child into work when you've got so many other things going on, and perhaps even things like you're in an open plan office. In the olden days, they would all have their own offices, and I think life was just different, and I think it's a shame. But I also think people don't necessarily talk about their careers in insurance as much as they should to their children. I think I hear all the time, I fell into insurance. Now obviously we didn't, but most people fall into it, and I think, okay, great, and they kind of say I fell into insurance, and then they laugh. Well, don't just laugh, say I fell into insurance, but this is my career, this is who I am, this is what I do, these are the people I meet. Talk about it, tell the story of being an insurance person.
I fell into insurance and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Exactly.
Type of of comment. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Do you think there's also something to do with like work experience, ages being higher, there being more around what you are and are not allowed to do? Because I got my first job when I was 13, paid job when I was 13. I might have lied about my age to say I was 14, but I worked a lot, and I found with my children now they want to, but there's all sorts of restrictions. No, insurance won't cover us unless you're 16, and the county council say you're not allowed to handle, I don't know, knives, all of that kind of stuff, which stops you being able to do that. And I'm wondering if it's the same with work experience.
Possibly, but I think sometimes people, again, I suppose I'm going back to what I said about people being busy. I think people are so busy all the time that they don't try and look for ways around things, and they accept what people tell them.
Yeah.
I think is probably the danger. I don't think an employer's liability policy tells you cannot work until you are 16. I think you've obviously got to do the right risk assessments, but I think people are told things and accept them too easily rather than finding ways to solve the problem, I think is probably fair to say.
I like that a lot. Do you think we should start a movement to have a bring your child to work day specific to the insurance industry?
Yes.
I think we should start that. If anybody listening thinks we should start that and has any idea how, please get in touch.
Yeah, but also have to solve the problem that I don't actually have children. But
I mean, it doesn't stop you being an advocate.
Absolutely.
I've got 3 you can have if you like.
So I've got plenty of nieces and nephews. When this one goes.
Talk to me about your involvement in, I'm going to call it RYLA, because I think, do people actually call it RYLA?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so I didn't make that up.
No.
Would you like to explain what RYLA is?
Yes. So I guess something else where I followed in my father's footsteps, I joined Rotary, and Rotary clubs exist all over the world actually, but Rotary does so many amazing things, and my father is still a Rotarian, and I followed him into Rotary and hadn't been involved very long, and somebody in my club said to me, I'd like to get you involved in RYLA. Now my mum had been involved in RYLA a few years before me, and my impression of it was it's an outward bound course. I'd have to know how to tie knots and read maps and do generally outdoorsy things and sleep in a tent. And he said, no, it's not about that. It's about leadership and imparting leadership skills on young people. So I said, okay, yes, I'll give that a go. And RYLA actually stands for the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. And it's actually a project. So Rotary is a worldwide organisation. It was founded in America in 1906, I think it was. And so it's a Rotary international project, so it runs all over the world. And you can choose in your different districts as to how you want your RYLA course to run and who you want it to be for. So you can do it from the ages of 14 to 30. So the programme that I'm the course director for is for 16 and 17-year-olds. And it's for young people in Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire. And their local Rotary clubs will recruit them. They'll go into schools, do interviews, and they're looking for young people who have leadership potential. Their background is completely immaterial, but they want them to have leadership potential. So they select them, and then they come on the programme, which is for a week every summer, but we run it for 2 weeks. So we see about 70 teenagers every year. It's actually starting a week on Saturday, so it's starting to get a bit close. And in the course of their week at RYLA, we have professional instructors to make sure they don't do anything dangerous. But they work in teams, and we use the cold learning cycle really as the basis for it, in that we give them a task to do. They then carry out this task, and we're watching them to see how they're doing it. And then at the end of the task, we do feedback, and the feedback is the most powerful part of it actually. So initially, my team and the instructors will give feedback, but as the week goes on, the young people get more and more comfortable giving each other feedback. And it's incredible to see how they change in the course of that week. They arrive on a Sunday morning looking absolutely terrified, and I'm kind of over friendly and over smiley, trying to make them feel at home. I try and learn their names really quickly. That's my party piece actually. I can learn 35 names in 20 minutes.
Incredible. I can't remember my own children's names, so.
But they settle in, and by Friday morning when they're going home, they don't want to go home. They're collected, and I'm literally shooing them into the cars, because by this point, particularly at the end of the second week, I'm absolutely exhausted and I just want them to go home. But they make friendships for life. And their confidence, it's just quite incredible seeing their confidence grow. They don't have access to their mobile phones. In fact, mobile phones don't work. So they do bring their phones thinking that I'm just lying about it, but no, they don't work. And we have Wi-Fi, as in the adults do, but they don't get the code. So they have to talk to each other.
I mean, that's a skill in itself nowadays. What sort of things do you do on the week-long course?
So the types of activities we do, so they all do all the activities but in rotation. So one example is an activity called Traverse, where they have to build a structure to carry a zip wire so that they can transfer from one side of the river to the other. So some of the team go to the bottom, some are at the top, and they have to do this exercise. Now, it's quite technically challenging in terms of the knots you've got to tie, making tripods, all the stuff I can't do, tying knots and everything else. But actually the task itself is almost immaterial. We're just giving them something to do. What we're actually doing is watching how they're planning it. Are they allocating roles and responsibilities? Are they asking questions like, has anybody done this before? They're also looking at individual needs. Is anybody scared of heights? And taking all that into account. So, and then of course we do the feedback. But again, another day we do what we call murder hunt, where they have lots of individual activities to do, like problem solving tasks, where they have to solve problems to earn money to pay an informant for clues to solve a murder. So that takes a whole day. We do a mountain rescue challenge where they go and rescue a casualty from the moors, and that's having to assimilate a lot of information in a short period of time and go and find the casualty. We do a raft race, which in itself is good fun, but what we actually do by this point, this is Wednesday evening when we do this, they've all been so used to working together for the last sort of 4 days, and they get ready and they do their plan and they start making it, and then the chief instructor kind of calls a time out and he switches the leaders, which throws them into utter confusion. But of course in the real world you might get a new manager and you've got to just adapt, or you might get a new team and you've got to adapt to that team. So all sorts of activities like that, but we try and recreate the real world as much as we can by using the outdoors. Another activity is they have to, one activity leads to them sleeping out overnight, but they don't sleep, they talk. Obviously the teenagers all together and they just talk and mess around all night. So the next morning they're absolutely shattered, but we do that on purpose to make them tired. So they then have to do the whole day of activities, but tired. And we say to them, if you're an emergency doctor or nurse and somebody comes in and you're like 1 minute away from finishing your shift, you can't just go, I'm tired, I'm going home. You've got to find that inner strength from somewhere and carry on. So that's what we do.
Do you do these weeks for team building weeks within companies? Because it sounds like not just kids can benefit from this. I would love to do something like this.
Yeah, the instructors that we use, they've been involved now for about 30 years, and they're all ex-army actually, so they've had a previous career, and I think it would be a great idea to do it, but they've just never taken it in that direction, and I certainly wouldn't have time to do it. So, but it's a shame because I sometimes wish that I could put my staff and other people through RYLA just because of the confidence it gives.
I think we should start a secondary movement
Okay.
to bring RYLA to corporates, because I think that is an incredibly powerful week, not just for bonding, but for learning individual skills, weaknesses, challenges, opportunities. I think it'd be brilliant. How does you just mentioned you'd like to put your staff through RYLA. How does your training program and culture within your brokerage reflect the experience you have in the community doing these kind of really cool things?
I think it's mostly reflected by us trying to really instill confidence in young people. I suppose going back to the Kolb learning cycle, I think there's a lot of insurance training that's on the job. So similar to RYLA, we're giving them a piece of work to do. We want them to think about it. We want them to understand what they're doing and think the way around it, solve that problem, and then we'll give our advice, or we'll check the piece of work and give that feedback. So I suppose it's similar in a way, but I think the main thing is it's just about trying to build them up, trying to build their professional skills, just to give them that confidence. So I think that's probably the thing that's most similar between them.
The you try and we provide feedback loop. Do you ever get peer feedbacks within your company? Peer-to-peer reviews and things like that?
We don't actually do peer-to-peer reviews, but not formally anyway. I mean, we are a relatively small company in the scheme of things. We have about 48 members of staff. So we don't do formal peer reviews. We do always get feedback from people when we do people's appraisals and things like that, but we don't do formal peer reviews. But we are mostly office-based, and so we're all there sort of around each other all the time. So we're really strong on giving praise where praise is due, and I think through praising people, they do build confidence.
Just for context, give me a little bit of an overview about Eastwood Insurance Brokers.
So we've been established now for about just over 30 years, fiercely independent. It's great fun being an independent broker these days. It's almost become our unique selling point, I suppose. We're predominantly commercial insurance brokers, but we also do private clients as well. And sometimes people say, what do we specialise in? And I say, well, we specialise in insurance broking. If you've got those insurance broking skills, you can pretty much turn your hand to any type of insurance. But we really believe strongly in bringing in young people. That's really important for us. We've brought trainees into the business for as long as I can remember. In fact, one of our trainees has been with us for 25 years. Clearly she's not a trainee anymore, but she joined us at 16, and she's now 41, 42, one of our account executives, really integral member of staff, and she started as a trainee. So bringing trainees to the business is really important.
Do you have any kind of thoughts on modern training that we use in the insurance industry? And I'm thinking particularly post-COVID, because there's been a lot of conversation around learning by osmosis when you're in the office versus now flexible working and people's preferred working from home. So do you have any kind of thoughts on the challenges that creates and what your solutions might be, or how you might do it?
Yeah, well, I think the challenge is obviously people working from home. I mean, when I had my first proper job at GRE, I was surrounded by people and I learned by osmosis, just listening to people on the phone. I think the main underwriter that trained me, we still exchange Christmas cards. He retired years ago, but I don't think he fully realises the impact that he had on me and my career. So I think that is a huge challenge. I think another challenge as well is, I think it's important to have training that fits with how people want to learn, but there's a lot of e-learning. And the online training modules are great. We use the Eastwood Development Zone, we use AXA Broker Passport. There's a lot of webinars flying around as well. But I think sometimes when I attend webinars, there's a lot of people there with the cameras off and the microphone's off, obviously. And I sometimes think, are they actually there? Or are they just doing it to pay lip service to it, to get some CPD? I think there's a lot that we've possibly lost a bit of control of. I think in terms of people working from home, I understand that people need that flexibility nowadays for that work-life balance. But I do think if you're not careful, it does have a huge impact on how young people learn. I mean, in our office, we are pretty much in the office 5 days a week. But of course, we're not in central London, we're in Huddersfield, and people can get to our office quite easily. So they're not having a huge commute. But if our young people weren't in the office, I think, everything that underpins our training is being there, shadowing, listening, being shown what to do, having people there checking your work, listening to people. And if that wasn't happening, I think we would be in a different position to how we are. And I don't know how you solve that, to be honest.
No, I don't. I'm also wondering about different like social changes that we're having. So I was speaking completely incidentally to a psychiatrist earlier this week, and he was telling me that when he started in his field, there was something like, please don't quote me because I will mess these numbers up, but something like 0.1% of the population who was diagnosed with neurodiverse condition like autism. And now it's about 9% of the population, which is a 9,000% increase. And he was saying to me, either 8,999% of people we didn't diagnose, or the parameters of neurodiversity have changed, but it has not yet been reflected in how we diagnose. So he said, we were just having an incidental, interesting conversation around it. One of my children is autistic, and I was really interested in that because I've attended quite a lot of webinars, but also conversations I've had on things like the Beaver Pod, even on this podcast, around how different people learn and take information and how they can be developed to be their best self, but you've got to, enable different groups of people who have different types of needs. There is significantly more focus on different diverse groups of people than there perhaps ever has been, which is wonderful. Does it create additional problems when you're trying to find solutions for very individualized, how does that work?
I think people have always been neurodiverse. I think the first point you said, I think just more people are being diagnosed now. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was at school, so I'm a child of the 70s, and I remember, there was always like a naughty boy in the class, and he wasn't a naughty boy. He was a young man who was struggling to learn in the way that the teacher wanted him to learn. So I think it's always existed, and we didn't really understand it then, I suppose. I think in our business, and I suppose again going back to RYLA, because we're quite a small business and because RYLA is quite an intensive thing with a relatively small number of people, if somebody puts on their registration form that they are autistic, in a way it kind of almost doesn't matter because we just totally take into account the needs of that individual person. So we talk to them individually about how do they learn best. But it's not just that person that might be autistic, it's all of them, because some of them might be nervous about, speaking in public or writing on a flip chart or so many things. For some reason I had a thing at school where I didn't like reading out loud. I don't know why. I think everybody has their own individual needs, whether they are autistic or not, or whether they're neurodiverse or not. I think we probably all are in our own ways at times, you know. I think it's just about making sure we cater those individual needs all the time and don't pigeonhole anybody.
And what I like, just going back to what you said earlier, is in one of the RYLA assessments with the zip wire, asking if anybody's afraid of heights. So you are just asking the questions and then making adjustments as is needed as you go. It doesn't need to be a big, wide policy all the time. It just needs to be kind of common sense, compassion, and as you would to anybody. Are you afraid of heights? Do you have problems reading pink on black rather than white on black, for example?
Exactly. It's just asking those questions. I think it goes back to talking about some leadership theory now, I suppose, but is it John Adair that did action-centred leadership? And that's all about how to achieve the task, taking into account the needs of the team and the individuals. And if you ask the right questions, or just ask questions, sometimes they don't always need to be the right questions, just ask questions, have an interest in somebody, and it's amazing what you'll find out, and you can then cater for them individually.
Ask questions and make sure you're really listening to the answers.
Yes.
So you mentioned something earlier about people being on webinars with their camera off, and is it just a tick box exercise for CPD points? And I think the world we live in is very tick box in lots of different ways. So just taking it back a little bit to be real. I like that. To finish, tell me what you think you would like to see and what you anticipate over the next kind of 5 to 10 years in terms of ways training programs could be implemented in the insurance industry to bring in younger generations, because it's a really hot topic at the moment. What would you like to see done, apart from obviously our 2 initiatives that we've just discussed, which I think are very important?
I think we are now starting to get more young people, new starters into the industry, and I think the key to the next 10 years is involving them in our decisions as quickly as we possibly can, because I think over the next 10 years technology is going to continue to, move forward so quickly. I'm already feeling that I'm starting to get out of touch with some of it, to be honest. So how I see the future is really, doesn't really matter what I think. I think it's about what do these young people think. We've got to give them the opportunity now to start having their say about things, because the one thing I've noticed really is that they do think very, very differently. I mean, I've got 2 stepdaughters, and one of them doesn't like what she's doing at the moment, so she's going to stop doing it. She's saved some money, she's going to stop doing it. She's going to go travelling, think about what she wants to do, and then do something else when she comes back. Well, I would never have done that, ever. They just think so differently. I always thought, I need a job for life, I'm going to be in this job forever. But they think about the next 5 years, about the next 10 years, so their brains work totally differently to mine. So I don't really want to say what I want to see for the future, because I don't think it's up to me. I think my role is enabling other people to do that.
I like it. Lucy, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to another enlightening episode of People in Insurance. If you enjoyed today's insights and want to stay connected with the latest industry trends, be sure to subscribe, rate and leave a review. Feel free to reach out to us on social media or through our website to share your thoughts and suggestions, or even to nominate someone whose contribution deserves to be heard. Until next time, signing off from People in Insurance.